Well, I don't know if
Council will call this meeting to order. For the record, it is March 4th, 2025 at 4:30 PM. We'll begin this afternoon's work session with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh.
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts. Councilman Taylor.
Here.
Councilman Overton.
Here.
Councilman Whitlock.
Here.
Councilwoman Strader.
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. Next item up is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
move we adopt the agenda as presented.
second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. First up is the consent agenda.
Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
move we approve the consent agenda as presented for the mayor to sign and the clerk to attest.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is agreed to. Our next item up is item 9, fiscal year 2025 Fire Department budget amendment amount of $12,000. Looks like we're going to have Chief Butterfield.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have in front of you a request for a water softener for Station 7. We realized we've been operational down there about 1.5 years now and recognized through the pictures that are part of the packet that we were seeing, and the crews were advising that they're seeing a lot of the calcium buildup in that particular station. We haven't noticed that in any of the other stations. And so in some due diligence efforts, we did meet with the water department, and essentially we're told sometimes that happens with the different wells in the city. Some wells have produced more hard water than other wells, and recognizing that we're seeing, actually visually seeing some of that, calcium buildup, we just want to get in front of this and be proactive as we can and get a water softener in that station. Especially with these particular fire stations, 24-hour operations, the crews are there 24 hours a day utilizing a lot of the water. More often than even your own house, as a lot of people in their homes, go to work and aren't using the water as often. So with that, over usage or usage that's a little above and beyond what you'd find in a residential structure, we want to make sure that we were proactive and requested a budget amendment for $12,000 to get that installed. So I would be happy to answer any questions council has.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, hopefully everyone received the information as well as the Q&A, and I'm happy to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget amendment in the amount of $12,000 to purchase a water softener for Station 7.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Little Roberts. Taylor.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Whitlock.
All ayes, motion carries. The item is agreed to.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll move on to item 10, which is the comprehensive financial plan update from the fire department. Welcome, Chief Bloom.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm really thrilled to be actually up here presenting sort of a 10-year vision for the Meridian Fire Department and the service that it intends to provide to this community. I really appreciated Councilman Cavanag's characterization on the first night of these as this being a road show. And I really took that to heart in how I was going to be able to present this and not get too far into the weeds, but very high level and strategic in the thinking and the planning that we're looking at. What we see right now is what we're going to talk about is we're really in the middle of a conversation right now. And that conversation is what is the best way over the next 10 years? Can the Meridian Fire Department continue to meet its growing demands in a fiscally responsible manner? And so, like I said, we're in the middle of a conversation right now because we necessarily don't know what that's going to look like, but we have a outline and a schematic of what we would like to accomplish over the next 10 years. So you'll see our first request, our first CFP request goes back to 2025 when we were making our budget proposal for FY 2025, largely predicated on an accreditation report. And then in that accreditation report, it had called out that we had some concerns regarding health and safety, cancer and carcinogen prevention. And what we did is we have pursued, we've gone through the RFP and now we're working with an architectural firm to sort of create a menu. What a large scale remodel would look like, what a minimal scale remodel would look like, and everything in between. Necessarily, these remodels, and I'm going to speak to this first one, and then I can just say ditto for the next 5. But the first, we don't know what station is going to go first. We want to get this plan back before we assign a station designation of which fire station we intend to remodel first. This might also play into the size of the remodel. Maybe by utilizing our Dark Horse analytic tool, it may indicate that in the next 10 years, the next 5 years, the best location for a multi-company station is station X. Well, based on that information, we might move forward with that station remodel first, recognizing that we may need a station that could house another fire station company during periods of remodel. So that's where this is coming from. And again, largely based on that accreditation recommendation and necessarily not increasing the apparatus bays. We're not trying to build mega stations. We're just trying to meet the growing and evolving need of the community and especially addressing the health and safety concerns that were pointed out in our accreditation report. Okay, the second one that we have is the Fire Safety Center at the Meridian Community Center. Currently, and I think Councilwoman Strader will probably be able to speak to this as well, we're looking for a budget amendment for the FY 25 budget to be able to participate in the having a footprint at the community center. The reason that we wanted to pair the Meridian Fire Department with the community center is we really recognize that when it comes to community risk reduction, being able to be in front of and being able having a seat at the table in the community with the members of the community, this is exactly where we need to position these people and these folks and to initiate and engage with the programs that community risk reduction is known for. And so that's this request. And what we're looking at is, like, as you see on here, and I'm sorry, the schematic is a little small, but it's not in addition to, but it is part of that overall floor plan, tying in again with community, with the Parks and Rec Department. And honestly, this is really cool in my opinion, because nationally, this isn't happening. But nationally, it is desired. People really would love to see risk reduction placed in a community accessible location, and to be able to co-locate at a community center, it would just be very, very cool.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, maybe just on that, briefly, since you did mention it, Chief, the fire department has sent me a proposed budget amendment for the design of this prevention piece at the community center, and it has not been approved yet. I wanted to get some more background and information for us, because I feel like it seems like having a robust Q&A is really going to help us to work through these things. But I think this is a good example of a budget amendment that would be approved for discussion because it is a wider discussion. I think, tricky thing about it is that the design process that the Parks Department has already engaged in is already underway. And so if we do want to have fire prevention co-located there, we need to amend that agreement and actually pay for the design of this. It sounds like the timing should be sooner rather than later. Otherwise, the cost would go up. But again, the community center timing is kind of an open discussion and probably something I expected more around the time when the budget would be presented. So that's just to sort of preview this for you. If you receive a budget amendment from me, it should have a lot of robust Q&A and back and forth that you could look at. And then I think we all need to just have a conversation about it. So that's kind of a preview, but for everybody to sort of know what he's talking about. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate that. Okay, moving forward, that concludes FY '26 budget requests, or CFP requests rather. And then again, you'll see a second station remodel. I appreciated, and actually it was interesting when we came before you requesting funding to go down this road of station remodels. Councilman Cavanagh actually said, I don't feel good about the 10-year span. And so what we've tried to do is condense, because of the concern with health and safety, in a 5-year period instead of a 10-year period. But this is the second station remodel. And again, it will largely be predicated on the information that we get back from the architectural firm, some of the plans, and then putting an overlay of where Dark Horse is recommending our station remodels and the sequencing of it. In FY '27, we're looking to add a third ladder service to the city of Meridian. This is largely predicated on the ISRB recommendations. Currently, with the 2 ladder services that we have in the city of Meridian, we're scoring it in the 33rd percentile in ladder coverage. Now, I recognize that that's just one data point, but as we're noticing the mid-rise and multifamily residents that are multiple stories all over Meridian, this appears to be the right path forward for the city of Meridian in the service with a ladder. With it being the third ladder service, the intent would be that it would be a cross-staffed model. So this ladder service would not come with the request for additional staffing. It would just be the ladder service. And according to the ISRB rating bureau, they indicate that by having it cross-staffed, we will get the credit for the third additional ladder service.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, I think this is another good example where we can provide maybe some more insight to the council, but I know the lead times have been a challenge on adding either a new ladder service or a replacement ladder service, which is a separate conversation. But do you want to just walk us through what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and kind of what your thoughts are on ladder service generally, making sure that we get to the right place? But the lead time sounded crazy. So if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am. You're not wrong. As we've been working with, well, let me back up. So the Meridian Fire Department is fleet specific to one vendor right now. It's Pierce. And the reason that we've been fleet specific is for the interoperability. The alternator on one of the engines is identical to the other 6 that we have, as well as for crew familiarity. So if a firefighter works at one fire station and goes to a different fire station, it's the same apparatus. And that really becomes important when you're the driver or the operator of it. They don't have to have, special, oh, I forgot that I had to do that with this one as brands go. So that's why we've been sticking with Pierce. That's not to say that we will forever. Certainly, as Councilwoman Strader indicated, that there are profound lead times with no end to that in sight. 40 to 50 months, 56 months in a lead time once a purchase order is issued is not unheard of. And so that's one consideration. The other consideration that we can make is to buy a demo model. And these come up throughout the year. We have a very specific model that we're looking for, and it would be identical, again, in keeping with the idea of having identical apparatus to the ladder truck that is currently stationed at Station 35. It's a Quint. So what if we go with a stock unit, there's the chance of reducing that lead time by half. So it's kind of interesting because we're playing the long game in recognizing that it can take up to 40 or 50 months to get a ladder truck, but we also have some opportunities that may get it in sooner. But we can't plan on those. Those are one-offs as they would come up. So that's sort of, Councilwoman Strader, does that sort of help with that?
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I'm having some technical issues.
okay.
That's why I'm not on video, but at least everybody can hear me. Yeah, I think it's just important for people to kind of understand that roadmap. And we do know we have an existing ladder that does need to be replaced as well. Did you want to touch on that at all in this conversation so people at least understand that?
I certainly can, ma'am. So it being a replacement, that's why you're not seeing it in the CFP request, but I'm anticipating or I'm hoping that we can have that as part of the FY26 budget dialogue as a replacement. Currently, the ladder that we have that we would like to replace is 15 years old. We're trying to follow NFPA standards, especially as it relates to emergency services vehicles. 15 years of an emergency service vehicle is old. It's tired. It has over 120,000 miles. And according to the recent numbers from our logistics chief, it's costing the city $80,000 a year in maintenance fees to keep it on the road and keep it in a reserve status. All that to say, it has significant downtime. And so that plays into the calculus of when and how we should replace it. So if that helps with that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very helpful. I think it's just good for people to kind of understand the big picture around that, and we'll have future discussions around that, but at least kind of now everyone understands how the new service kind of fits in. This is an additional service that is needed for the
Yes, ma'am.
city
Correct.
and not a replacement. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Thanks. Chief Bloom, really quick question on the different vendors. With such long lead time, does it make sense to work with any other vendors potentially? I know, like, I don't even know if Boise Mobile Equipment, for example, does these types of fire trucks, but if we're looking at such long lead times and the difficulty with that, is there value in looking at other vendors potentially? And I get the, interoperability with parts and things. I get that, but could you just speak to that for a little bit?
Councilman Taylor, you're absolutely spot on. And I have witnesses here with me this evening. We had this conversation on Monday. We are not going to be beholden to one manufacturer. If you as council members and the mayor approve a ladder, it's because you believe that we need the ladder. We don't need it 40 months from now. We need it now. And so we were talking about moving away from being vendor specific and purpose driven. Like if we can find a comparable that meets the demand and meets the requirement that we're looking for from another vendor, and there's 5 other vendors out there. We're doing that this week.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
I'm going to tread lightly because I don't want to start moving into a budget conversation, but I need maybe just some understanding of your industry as it pertains to the cost of a ladder truck. And I'll share this because when we bought our first ladder truck, I think it was $1.5 million. And the reason why I know that is because I told my kids, and every time a ladder truck drives by, it was 1.5, and second was 1.75. And so now I see at $2.5 million. Has the technology of the industry evolved that it requires a ladder truck to adhere? Is it demand? Help me understand. I mean, when I see almost doubling in what we paid for our first ladder truck for what would be proposed here in the CFP, I really struggle with that. And I'm trying to understand for myself what's causing the significant increase in cost.
Councilman Cavanagh, very excellent question. And in fact, I was just back at the Congressional Fire Services Institute, and this was a topic of discussion among fire chiefs from across the country. There was a comparison that was made. They said 10 years ago, it cost $740 million to build a Boeing 747. Last year in FY24, it costs $747 million or $474 million. So $7 million increase on a 400, you get where I'm going. So there is no reason that we can think of that we could possibly put our finger on as to why the price has jumped to the point you just made. I mean, we're looking at a 50% increase, a 100% increase over a 10-year period. It doesn't make sense. And certainly now there's a commission that was established that's actually looking into this, like for the industry, like why in the world? It's very unique. It's doesn't occur in law enforcement. It doesn't occur in commercial trucking. It's occurring in the fire service. And so you're not wrong. And the concern is a national one.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, because this
Councilman Cavan.
pertains a little bit to where we're headed in this year's budget. I look at, okay, I get a 10-year lifespan on this truck. Okay, so it's $250,000 a year versus an existing ladder truck that you're saying is costing us $80,000 to continue to operate. Now, I want to take aside the downtime because I think that's the critical piece. But if I am budget conscious, which I think we all are, certainly say, wow, we're getting a better ROI out of maintaining an existing vehicle at $80,000 a year, as opposed to spending 3 times that for something new. So I think that is challenges for you as subject matter experts to help us understand as we move into our budget hearing. I don't want to necessarily get into that, but the cost disparity is so wide that I didn't want to catch you off guard with these types of questions when we move into our budget hearing.
I assure you, you're not catching them off guard with that question.
Nope. Yep. The mayor and I've had that same conversation, and it's hard to argue. The ROI is there. Again, we're looking at trying to be compliant with NFPA standards, as it relates to safety. And I mean, we will be prepared to have this conversation when we get to budget. Any other questions on that one? I get to go to another ditto slide here. So here's our 3rd station remodel. We're looking to begin that start funding in FY28. And it is, again, it's consistent with the previous 2 that you've seen.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
so a quick question on these remodels. Are those impact fee eligible? Is that how we pay for those remodels?
Excellent question. They're impact fee eligible if it's for an increase in square footage. Working within the existing footprint of the stations that we have, specifically a turnout room that is isolated from the apparatus bay would be additional square footage. Gym space or workout area that is isolated from diesel particulate matter would be a increased floor space. So I would defer to finance who's here, but if it's for an increase in square footage, it is impact fee eligible. But if it's for interior remodeling, adding additional bedrooms or things like that, then that is not impact fee eligible.
Any walls or separations within the footprint are not. It's only if it expands beyond the current footprint.
Mr. Mayor, to clarify on that point, is it possible that there's a combination of funding sources, increased footprint for the impact fees and then other funds for okay, thank you.
Okay. Again, so here is another one of our station remodels. Again, same thing, FY29, kind of pacing us out with that 5-year cadence to get all 5 done. And this is our last one in FY30. We'll be looking to complete the 5th station remodel. After that, what we're looking at is acquiring land for fire station number 9. And I could fast forward real quick and I'll come back to that. But purchasing the land is going to be leveraging heavily on the Dark Horse analytic tool that the city has provided the fire department. And what you see right on the left there is a screen grab of sort of the dashboard that we're looking at. I mean, this is a extremely powerful tool. We can change everything, every variable, and it has within its background capability all of the approved construction, all the existing construction. We can put in hypothetical roads. we can do a lot of things. And then we overlay that with our current call volume as well as potential future call volumes. And what we're trying to do is determine where the best location for the next fire station should be. This software, I'm going to use the term manipulate, but it's in the context of manipulating the data. It indicates very clearly where our next fire station should go, should we want to maintain our level of performance. And you'll see that 60% performance. That is with the variables that were inputted in there. 60% of our performance. So that means, are we making it to our calls with an effective response force in the adequate amount of time to address the community's emergency? We can change that based on if it's a medical call, if it's a car accident, if it's a high-risk fire event. And so that performance changes, but I just wanted to kind of illustrate this is an impressive tool. And I would argue the city is not going to be wrong when they pick the next location for their fire station, because this is a very, very useful tool specifically for that. So again, that's sort of in talking about the land acquisition, that's what's going to sort of drive that conversation, that dialogue. We already have a ton of useful information that kind of gives us that predictive modeling of where it needs to be within, a quarter of a mile. Then we would move into, in 2030, the design phase for fire station number 9. And coinciding with fire station 9, not necessarily deployed at station 9, would be the 4th ladder service. Again, looking at the predictive analytic model, it may tell us to relocate an engine from over here and put that at station 9, put the ladder service on the 10-mile corridor, for example. So we're not beholden to it going to station 9. What we're saying is it will coincide. This will be the apparatus that it's purchased to support the opening of station 9, if that makes sense. Okay. But that would be the 4th ladder service in the community. And at this point, according to ISRB, we would get 100% credit for ladder service in the city of Meridian. Station 9 construction occurring in 2031. And then again, now we get to the personnel considerations, and we've pushed this out to coincide with the opening of Station 9. 3 battalion chiefs and a vehicle. By my estimation, we're at a point now where having the conversation for a 2nd battalion is necessary. Span of control issues, the response time for a battalion chief, if they happen to be at Station 7 on the south east end of town and they need to make it over to Station 8 on the northwest side of town, it's a 45-minute travel time. Sometimes things are needing to be addressed in an immediate sense, and certainly having a 2nd battalion would allow us to district the city in a north-south fashion or an east-west fashion, and allow for a better span of control model for the city fire department. It's also worth noting too that anytime there's a confirmed structure fire in the city of Meridian, by our FRLs, our response level, it necessitates 2 battalion chiefs. So with us only having 1, we are always pulling a 2nd battalion chief from our neighboring partners. That's current.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
Chief Bloom, when you say it necessitates a 2nd battalion chief, can you just help me understand why that is? Is that city policy? Is that, best practices? Can you tell me why it necessitates?
Councilman Taylor, great question. Necessitate in regard to how the Ada County, how we dispatch fires in Ada County. So it's an agreed upon standard with the jurisdictions, and it certainly does lend itself to a component of safety. Fire scenes are very hectic, and if you're a battalion chief and you're on one side of the structure, there's a lot going on potentially on the other side that you don't get eyes on. And then certainly as it relates to a span of control, once you get into an apartment fire, for example, and you have to start making division assignments, you need the additional human resource to manage that.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
maybe
maybe it would be helpful if you want to just talk a little bit about span of control. Like I found that very helpful. But if you, not everyone has a public safety background, so if you want to just quickly explain that.
Yes, ma'am. So as it relates to, there is business models that say 4 to 5 span of control. When you have one battalion chief who's got 8 currently, 8 captains, 8 crews operating, it's very challenging for them to get beyond task saturation at the task level, and being able to reduce that burden. If I were to only have 4 stations and 4 captains and 4 crews that I'm responsible for, they're much better able to address the needs of those crews. They're better able to supervise those crews and provide protection, direction, and order for them. And then certainly the span of control that I just indicated with the fire and emergency scenes, it is essential, because when you have 8 to 10 fire companies operating in a very chaotic environment, having a span of control and a separation of who's in charge of what is really important.
Thank you. I think that helps everybody to be on the same page. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so Station 9, once we get to a point of opening it and turning the keys on there, we're going to need additional staff for that station. We have put in here 12 staff members for that station, and you'll see on there it has 3 captains, 3 engineers, and 6 firefighters. Our last 2 requests include a captain of inspection and vehicle. Currently, we have a inspection bureau, inspection division that consists of 3 people. And I can tell you that they are extremely busy. And as Meridian continues to grow, as businesses, they don't inspect residents, but they do inspect the commercial businesses in the community. They've got their hands full, and there's a lot going on in year-round work. And certainly what we're projecting is if in 10 years, we're at saturation now, in 10 years, it would definitely be appropriate to add this additional service. Our last one is a captain of training. Currently, and before we had the growth that we had in Meridian, where the fire department grew by 2 fire stations and 40% staff, we had 2 captains of training, and we still have 2 captains of training. What we're doing now to sort of get by is we are pulling captains off of their line assignment, off of their engine or ladder assignment, and bringing them into the training division during our peak needs specific to fire academies. And then they go back to their assignment after the academy's over. But certainly as training evolves and the need for our people to be mentored and coached in fireground evolutions, having training staff available is really important. And we feel that 3 would be a great number, considering we have 3 shifts. We assign 1 to each shift. That becomes a shift training captain. And that, if I'm not mistaken, that concludes the presentation for the next 10 years for the fire department.
Thank you, Chief. Council questions, Councilman Mohawk.
A quick one, Chief. Thank you for the overview and very, very helpful. Just a question on your ditto slide. The ditto slides, the dollar amounts were also ditto. Explain to me how that works over a 5-year period.
I appreciate that question. Those are guesses. We're in the architectural, we're getting the design and development, and by the time we go to a budget this June and July, we'll have a much better understanding and a better number that we can associate. These were just not even best. They were just guesses, honestly.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
maybe something that would help everyone is, and Todd will jump in if I'm incorrect. My understanding of the CFP projection model is that we put in today's dollars, and then within the CFP itself, the finance team adds an inflation factor to everything. I'm looking at Todd for a nod. Yep. So that helps everybody kind of understand how we do that, because otherwise, to your point, it's extremely difficult to predict.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
a couple of quick questions. Talk to me and the council a little bit about remodel versus relocation. Your predecessor spoke at great lengths about the need to relocate some or other stations, the training center as well. Is that a position this current administration supports or shares? How are you finding the balance between remodeling? Certainly, I wouldn't want to remodel a location if we were inevitably going to relocate that. So that's my first question. Help me understand kind of what the vision is for our current stations as they're currently built.
Excellent question, Councilman Cavanagh. No, we're not looking to relocate, and that's the simple answer. But Chief Butterfield and I have spent a lot of time in this dark horse platform, and we've run the scenario. Where would you wipe all the stations off the map, and where would you put them? Correct me if I'm wrong, but within a quarter of a mile. I don't know if Meridian was guessing really well or got very lucky, but they placed all of their fire stations within a quarter of a mile of where Dark Horse would put them. So the answer is no. We think that where we're located is the correct location for serving the community. Relocating the training center. There is a lot of consideration to that. It does make it challenging running fire academies, and it does make it challenging operating a fire station in one location as well as a training center. The training center has needs. Currently, when we're training our recruits, and I know this is kind of really in the weeds, but there are no showers. There's no place for these people, so it's challenging. So it's not ideal, but it's expensive. I mean, those training towers, I can't even imagine what rebuilding one of those training towers on any piece of dirt would cost. And so it is challenging. But again, Station 1 is in a great location, and it has wonderful frontage access right out onto Franklin. So that's an important thing, like relocating a station. You start as a firefighter, as a captain at a station, the decision pulling out of the station is really, do I go left or right? Well, Franklin's awesome, because I can be to Meridian Road or Locust Grove just by a left or right turn. I don't have to navigate out of a neighborhood. I don't have to navigate on some side streets and wait for traffic. I go left or right. So I think that we're in good locations.
Mr. Mayor, one more additional.
Councilman Cavanagh.
On your ditto slides, there's a bullet that certainly speaks to me, and it revolved around carcinogen avoidance was the term that you used. For all of us, right, the health and safety of all of our employees is paramount. But that term avoidance sparked some interest, because be my understanding, we can't avoid carcinogens. And so I guess at a later point in time, I want some greater understanding about how a station remodel moves us to the point of avoiding versus further limiting. And so I would want to make sure that the council feels really comfortable if we're doing a remodel. Is it moving us into a position where our on the ground firefighters are avoiding carcinogens in the station versus what we're doing to limit that exposure? So I think that's planting a seed for a later conversation that I think I want some really strong understanding about that particular piece.
That's an excellent observation, and I think that our membership would like that as well. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Taylor.
Just a quick question and maybe a little history lesson for me, if you could. I'm just thinking a little bit about the timing of the next fire station and thinking back to the rapid growth we had and bringing on the last couple of fire stations. Maybe I recognize a bit of an extraordinary growth that kind of pushed maybe more quickly building out some fire stations. So I guess the question would be, do you anticipate possibly that the timing of Station 9 could be moved up by any considerable length of time, or even maybe delayed if we should see a real slowdown in growth? Maybe just kind of talk to me a little bit about how comfortable you are with the timing of Station 9 when we're looking at it in the CFP, and maybe what we saw in recent years. That was before I came on council, some of that discussion, so I'm kind of missing some of those pieces. So I'd appreciate some discussion on that.
That's a great question, Councilman Taylor. The consideration for Station 9 is not whether we need to build it or not. It needs to be built. I think that what I tried to project this evening was recognizing the difficult situation that you as council are sitting in right now. The onboarding of an additional 12 firefighters, potentially. you know, I'm trying to be sensitive to that understanding. Now, there may be other ways to get to a staffing model at that station, but recognizing in the current situation we're in right today, I don't know how the city can be in a position to support 12 additional firefighters. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Maybe just to set some, there could be other uses for a Station 9 that might want to build it sooner if we were to use that as we do station remodels. So I guess I would say there might be a conversation about doing that, but doesn't mean we add more staff or we operate more engines. But that might be a way to address stuff rather than putting two current stations out of one station in the short term. But the impact fees, when are they and what are the other competing priorities, I think is part of that conversation. And when we would have access to the right place is part of that. So I don't want to have the chief say it's only when we get to the people, in case it shows up in 2 years as a conversation point.
Mayor, quick follow-up.
Councilman Taylor.
You kind of brought up a good point that I had been thinking about. When it comes to remodel, is that something where you have to vacate the premise to do the remodel, or can you coexist while that's happening?
Excellent question. And to be honest, we don't know yet. Depending on the significance of the remodel, I mean, if this is an addition that is occurring outside of the footprint that doesn't impact the station life or then yeah, they can probably operate out of it. We're working in the mindset of where would we relocate people if we had to do that?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
at least the beginnings of a strategy I had heard you articulate that I thought had made some sense, and it's just worth thinking through, would be if Dark Horse indicated a strong preference for one multi-company station, if the analytics indicated that, that would be a logical first remodel, because that would give us the ability to co-locate in the first one, and then that would kind of create a domino effect. So again, I agree with the mayor. I think there are multiple paths to remodeling all these stations, and you all will have to just, as you're thinking through tactically with us, you can articulate what the best path is. But I thought that made common sense to me if that was a path that you go down.
Yes, ma'am.
Council, any additional questions? All right. Thank you very much. With that, we've reached the end. Councilman Cavanagh,
Move that we adjourn our work session.
motion adjourned. All in favor,
Second.
motion second to adjourn the work session. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Cancel. We'll call this meeting to order. For the record, it is March 4th, 2025 at 6 PM. We'll begin tonight's Worker City Council meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh, Councilwoman Little Roberts, Councilman Taylor, Councilman Overton,
Here.
Councilman Whitlock,
Here.
Councilwoman Strainer,
Here?
Mayor Simison.
Here. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If y'all please rise and join us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up will be our committee invocation, which will be delivered by Mick Armstrong. If you'd all please join us in the committee invocation or take this as a moment of silence and reflection.
Father, thank you so much for the good favor that you show on our community, the prosperity and safety and peace that we enjoy, and just a great place to raise families. We just thank you also for the faithful execution of the trust that the citizens have placed in our mayor and these council members. And just pray for wisdom for them as they continue to make decisions for the welfare of our community. And thank you too for the variety of city departments that take care of our public needs and continue to monitor our safety and make this a great place to live. And just we pray that you would continue to bless this city, this community, that we, in spite of our differences, sometimes very vigorous, that we would respect each other and listen to each other. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mick. With that, we'll move on to adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented this evening.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is agreed to. Ms. Clark, you want to sign up under public forum?
Mr. Mayor, nobody signed up.
Okay, then with that, we will move into item 1, which is resolution number 25-2504. Council, this is a resolution establishing the appointment of Randy Rabin to seat 5 of the Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission. Randy is showing himself to be a dedicated individual who would like to serve this community. He has applied for a position before and came back again, and first that shows dedication. He also has he's recently retired. He's got well, retired, I don't want to say recently, but pretty recently. But I think he's looking for a way to get involved in the community that he calls home. And he's got a different background, I think, than a lot of people. Definitely more of a technical background, but he's coming in just as what I would call a general user of our services, but he's knowledgeable of the changes we've made in large items. He participates in the glass bottle drop off as an individual. So he's there to get involved and make sure that our residents are getting the best they can for the services for what Republic does for our community in the landfill. So with that, and he is here, if you have any desire to hear from him after you make a motion, I'm sure he'd be happy to do that, but I wholeheartedly think that he'll be a great addition to SWAC. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
is anybody clamoring for any questions? So for a motion, I move that we approve resolution number 25-2504, establishing the appointment, of Randy Rabin to seat 5 of the Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve item number 1. Is there a discussion on the motion? If not, in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the resolution is good too. Brandy, do you have any comments or do you like to make? All right, he will waive his comments, but appreciate you being here. And Lorelai's right there. You can introduce yourself to her. She's one of the faces of SWAC and our Public Works Director. So thank you for being here. And with that, we will move on to tonight's action items. First item up is item 2, public hearing for fiscal year 2025 of the Public Works fee schedule. And turn this over to Director McVeigh.
Right. right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is our public hearing following up on our presentation we gave a couple of weeks ago. This was noticed and we have not received any comments, but just as a quick update, we started with 178 fees. We were able to cut 89 of those completely. We decreased 15 of them. And there are 44 that are increasing, but those are all due to direct pass-through costs from the vendor or directly related to staffing cost increases on labor rates. So anyways, these are just our normal pass-through and update every year, but the notable thing is the large reduction in fees. So with that, if there's any questions.
And technically, I want to make sure we open the public hearing on this item, so Dean will make that correction in that context. Any questions for Lorelei? All right, thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, we have everyone sent to provide testimony on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we did not.
Okay. Is there anybody present or online who would like to provide testimony on this item? If so, if you can raise your hand or come forward at this time. Seeing no one coming forward and no one raising their hand online, council, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor,
move that we close the public hearing on resolution 25-2505.
Second.
I have a motion second to close the public hearing on the Public Works fee schedule. And first and second, is there any debate on the motion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
I just want to commend Lorelei and her team for their hard work. I think at a time where over the last few years, we've just seen the cost for so many things increase and grow. I think it's a welcome change to try to eliminate some of the fees, to minimize those that did need to increase, to be focused on just providing the best services. So I'm really grateful for the work. I think just want to commend all the people there, and Lorelei, I hope you'll take that back to your team as well and let them know how much we appreciate that, because it's really rare that we find ourselves in a situation where we're looking at some proposal like this, where we're eliminating and cutting where we can, even though acknowledging that, you know, there are some places where we do have to increase the fees, but they were minimal in the impact. So just wanted to make that note. And I'll make a motion when the time comes, unless other council members want to weigh in.
Think that time is now.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
move that we approve resolution 25-2505.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 25-2505. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the resolution is agreed to. Thank you very much. Appreciate being here tonight. With that, we'll move on to item 4, which is a public hearing for ordinance number 25-2075, updates to Title II Meridian City Code. Open this public hearing with any comments from staff. Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, what we have on here is for just the first reading of the ordinance for the commissions. And so this was an opportunity for the public to weigh in. Again, we did this presentation previously to you. So we also have it out for first reading tonight, and we can move it forward at your discretion for a second and third reading, either combined or separated, whatever you prefer. But tonight was just for the public's opportunity to weigh in.
All right, thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Okay, with that, Mr. Clerk, may everyone sign up to provide testimony on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we did not.
Okay, is there anybody present who would like to provide testimony on this item, either in the room or online? Seeing no one coming forward, council, is your desire to continue this public hearing to next week? Is that how? Councilman Cavanagh.
That is how we have traditionally done it, is just to keep the public hearing open in case we don't want to limit anybody's ability. If they do have some input or some insight to share on this particular issue, we want to keep the door open for them through our likely combined second and third reading at a future date. So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
I'll move that we continue this agenda item, ordinance 25-2075, a public hearing for that to next Tuesday, which would be, I believe, March the 11th.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to continue this item to March 11th. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is continued. Up next is item 5, which is public hearing for Meridian Food Bank H 2024-0065. We will open this public hearing with staff comments.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Next item on the agenda is the rezone for the Meridian Food Bank. The applicant is requesting a rezone of 1.72 acres of land from the light industrial zoning district to the Old Town zoning district to bring the existing food bank into conformance for future expansions. The site is located at 616 Northwest Second Street. And as shown on the screen, the current zoning is light industrial and the flume designation is Old Town. The subject site is among several industrial properties along the rail corridor near Meridian Road. The proposed use of a social service or food bank is a permitted use in the Old Town zoning district, which is the zoning the applicant is requesting. The current use is non-conforming in the IL zoning district, which requires a conditional use permit for any proposed expansions. The rezone to Old Town will allow the continued use of the existing food bank, remove the non-conforming status, and eliminate the need for future conditional use permit approvals to expand the use. The Meridian Food Bank is open Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. And the main reason for the rezone request is to allow for future expansions to provide additional space for the Meridian Food Bank to assemble food packs for students in West Ada School District. The food packs allow students to have food over the weekends, and the number of packs has increased significantly since 2023, and the Meridian Food Bank no longer has sufficient room to service all the children in need of resources. The expansion will include approximately 940 square feet of space designated for the purpose of assembly and storage of these food packs. UDC 11-3B2 allows for phased landscape improvements as cumulative expansions occur, and the city will monitor these thresholds and enforce them as required by the UDC with these expansions as they occur in the future. And this is just a rough schematic of their proposed expansion. Staff and the commission are recommending approval without the requirement for a development agreement and have not received any written testimony at this time, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Nick, council, any questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to come forward? Did he state your name and address for the record?
My name's Gil Green, and my address is 2512 East Garber Drive, Meridian, Idaho. Okay, always, when I get up, I have to tell people a little bit about the food bank to start out with. We're a 100% nonprofit or a 100% volunteer nonprofit. I am currently chairman of the board. But we have a food pantry. The last couple of months, we have serviced over 2,000 visitors each month. And the other thing we do is we provide weekend meals for food insecure students of the West Ada School District. About 2 years ago, our director of the backpack program told us that the room they were in, the maximum amount that we could stage for and assemble a week was 800. Last month, the amounts were $878, $940, 960, and 922. That's the weeks. This month, we're at 933, and because of the snow day, it dropped down to 228, and then jumped back up to 912 and 914. So we started looking for a place to expand, and we have what used to be the old parsonage, which has been converted to storage for those backpacks. And then we have the main warehouse, where there's one room in there dedicated to staging and assembling the packs so they can be delivered to the schools. We looked around and we said, well, gosh, if we build a wall here and a wall here and just combine the two buildings, we've already got 2 walls built. So we started to go forward, called planning and zoning. They said, well, you're in non-compliance with your zoning now, so it would be best if you changed. So that's what we're doing.
All right, thank you. Council, any questions? All right, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, we have anyone sign up on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we did not.
Okay. Is there anybody present who would like to provide testimony on this item, either in the room or online? Seeing no one coming forward, you like to make any final comments, or are you good on your comments? Okay, applicant waives. Council discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
This feels like a pretty straightforward decision. And I think we all just want to celebrate the Meridian Food Bank and all that they're bringing to our community to help people that are truly in need. Just express how appreciative we are. I'm happy to move that we close the public hearing on this item.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Councilman Taylor.
I just want to make a note, and I really appreciate the opportunity to engage here. A couple of years ago, at my church, we had an opportunity to start gathering items for the backpack for kids. What I was surprised at the time when we were learning about it was how many kids in West Ada, are homeless actually, and how many kids do really not sure what they're going to eat. And it was such a simple way to fix it. We're talking granola bars, ramen noodles, juice. It's not much. It's not much. And so, we've helped contribute by bringing fairly simple things. My kids have participated in putting we're talking about putting in a grocery sack some items and tie it up. And it's not fancy, but it means a lot. And so I think this is a wonderful service. So I really appreciate the food bank for doing this, focusing on the kids that really need that help. So I'm excited about this.
Thank you. Further comments on the motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
favor both this motion and the likely motion to follow, and I think it's the fact that nobody's here is actually a testament to the food bank. I remember sitting in the audience I remember attending the ribbon cutting when they opened their facility in Old Town, and there was certainly lots of concern from our community about what type of a neighbor the Meridian Food Bank will be. And I will say the Meridian Food Bank has been the best type of neighbor for our community. And the fact that you've got this facility that operates across the street from residential in the heart of Old Town, and there's not people that are concerned or upset, it's because volunteers at the food bank, and Gil touched on this, nobody that works there draws a salary. So if you give $1 to the Meridian Food Bank, that dollar goes to food. And I just think it's a great success story for our community that's being led by the Meridian Food Bank. And so I'm happy to support the motion to close the public hearing and be happy to support a likely motion that will follow. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other comments on the motion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
I'm sure there could be more discussion. People could chime in. I think it'll all be favorable. Spoiler alert. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H 2024-0065 as presented in the staff report for today's hearing date.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 5. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Little Roberts.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. The item is agreed to. Congratulations. Appreciate what you do and look forward to seeing you continue to serve this community with your hearts.
Thank you for Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 6, which is a public hearing for Newkirk East, H 2024-0043. We'll open this public hearing with staff comments.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So tonight we are here for a request for a preliminary plat and development agreement modification to convert 216 apartments into 95 single-family attached homes on 10 acres of land that is currently zoned traditional residential neighborhood residential. The Newkirk subdivision was approved by City Council on April 25th in 2023. It involved the annexation of 22.667 acres with the T&R zoning. The original plan included 63 building lots, 44 single-family attached homes, 18 townhomes, and 1 multifamily development with 216 units, and 8 common lots on 20.44 acres to be developed in 2 phases. So the single-family residential in Phase 1 and the multifamily in Phase 2. The applicant now proposes removing the multifamily component, replacing it with a mix of single-family attached homes with front-loaded garages and alley-loaded townhomes. This modification reduces the gross density from 13.2 to 7.3 dwelling units per acre for the overall development, meeting the TNR district minimum net density of 6 units per acre, but falling below the 10-mile interchange plan target gross density of 12 units per acre. Additionally, we have the Kennedy Ladder, a gap area owned by the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, which was overlooked during the prior approvals. This unincorporated area between parcels will need to be annexed by the city to resolve this issue. And again, we did an analysis of all the development around this to show that none of the developments really hit that 12 units per acre that we are aspiring to. So this development is really not out of alignment with what's in the area. So the proposed plat, again, is everything, the site development must comply with the dimensional standards of the UDC. While there is no minimum lot size for the TNR district, each building site must be sufficient size to meet the district's minimum setback requirements, and the development must include 2 minimum housing types. Although street access properties are permitted within the district, they are generally expected to be located along the perimeter of the TNR development. The applicant must demonstrate that the proposed development aligns with the proposed statement of the TNR district. The applicant shall provide justification for limited number of alley-loaded homes included in the proposal in the form of a waiver. The regulating authority will determine whether the applicant has met the intent of the TNR district street design requirements or require revision to the plat. So staff feels that they meet. There are some townhomes that are in, they're not alley loaded, but where they are located, it's sufficient to meet the intent of the TNR district. This is their open space requirement. So they're not providing any, they are providing one additional amenity on this site, but this site will be combined with the original development, which has 35% open space, which is over the 15% that was required. So they exceeded their open space requirement. So staff has no issues with their open space requirements. These are some of the amenities. This is what's newly been added. There's plenty of pedestrian circulation added to this development and the existing development. So again, when we were talking about the townhomes, these are the townhomes. They had to revise their site plan because it showed 2 street frontages. So they added landscaping along this side so that there are not 2 street frontages. These are the building designs which were previously approved with Phase 1. So they brought back in those same designs, and City Council made some exceptions to the design standards within the 10-mile area plan. So this will still have to go through the design review requirements. As far as block lengths, they meet the requirements for the block lengths. In the beginning, they had a few that were over, but they modified their plan to meet that. The only one that can't meet is this one because of the terrain. It's along Midford Way. It exceeds the 500-foot. They're requesting an exception because of the terrain difference there. Again, this is the non-contiguous property that we were talking about. It cannot be part of this application because it is bisected by the property that belongs to Nampa Meridian Irrigation District. But the commission wanted a condition added to this that deed restriction for this non-contiguous parcel stating that it is unbuildable. It will either be transferred to the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, the HOA, or the owner retains the property. Written document should be provided prior to the city engineer's signature on the final plat. These are the modifications to the development agreement. We're striking everything that dealt with the multifamily, and we're just putting that a maximum of 95 single-family units shall be constructed within Newkirk East subdivision. And then the area of the northeast corner of the development of the Kennedy Ladder shall be owned and maintained by the property owner or the homeowners association, as well as the condition that is required, that the commission required. And we did remove condition number 3 because the applicant corrected that. And we are also asking to remove condition number 4 because the applicant corrected that. And with that, at this time, I will stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Linda. Council, any questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
could you just refresh me as to which conditions you wanted to remove now specifically? Sorry, I was just taking notes and didn't quite catch that. Heard condition 3, but they're, in the summary document we have, they're actually lettered. I could look, I have the application on my computer as well, but.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thanks.
So condition number 3 dealt with block 3. To, let me make sure, sorry. Pull this down real quick. So condition number 3 was add a pedestrian facility along North Midford Way. We understand that that cannot happen because of the terrain difference there. So the commission recommended removing that one.
Mhm.
And so condition number 4 is add a pedestrian facility along block 3 in the vicinity of lots 20 through 23 to connect to the common lot. This is so that we could bring the block trace length into compliance, but they already did that. They made that correction, so we won't need that.
Got it. So, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Councilwoman Schrader.
So it's really removing condition 3, the requirement to add a pedestrian facility. And then in addition, condition 4, the block face length. Because of the terrain, and I saw along the canal, it looked
That would be
challenging.
Number 3 was that one, and then number 4,
Ah.
pedestrian facility because of the block face.
Got it. I had them swapped. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Taylor.
Linda, could you just speak again? I think I heard you say when council originally approved this, that they waived some of the design standards for some of the townhomes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, when the original building elevations, design elements were approved, some of the design standards. So council approved exceptions to the required 10-mile plan standards with the original plat.
Thank you.
Council, any additional questions for staff? Then I'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Hi, everybody. Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street in Boise, representing the applicant. And I am thinking that we're probably pretty close in terms of kind of being on the same page here, so I'll try to abbreviate my presentation and kind of hit maybe a couple of the highlights and give you a little context for things. Were you guys able to get that presentation load up? Okay. While they're looking at that, I think one thing I would just clarify on for Councilmember Taylor on the design standards from before. The question that came up during the prior hearing was more of a question of comprehensive plan and 10-mile plan requirements. One of the things we talked about was that the 10-mile plan required porches and these kind of design requirements that were difficult to satisfy and still hit the density standards that Linda talked about before. And so when we built or when we came forward with the project, and I'll show you a picture of it, we devoted one block to alley loaded product. And then we had this ring of single family attached that was not alley loaded. And ultimately the council concluded that that satisfied the intent of the comprehensive plan, but it was not a design standard waiver or anything more formal than that. So again, this, you guys are familiar with the area. It's very much under development. As a status report, and Linda's pictures kind of showed this, phase 1 of the project is currently under construction. So what we're talking about right now is phase 2. It's a triangular site. It's kind of a tough one to design against because of that. We have existing projects on 3 sides. We've got the lateral on the north and the railroad as well. We have terrain that drops off north to south and west to east. And so that is part of this topography issue that Linda mentioned with regard to being able to connect in a pedestrian connection into the collector. That collector's location was predetermined. It's on the south side of the project. And then we also have east and west entries that go through existing apartment projects or projects that are under development. So this is where we kind of wanted to show you where that collector is. So it kind of runs the entirety of the south of the project, and that is completed. So back again, when we did phase 1, we had a phase 1 with the single family in it, and this is the block that had the alley load. We had a phase 2 with multifamily, but what we've determined since then is that multifamily is going to be very difficult on this project. And the reason for that is largely due to visibility. It's set behind, it's behind these other apartment projects. And it's not big enough to, when you have those disadvantages, you've got to over amenitize, and it's just not a big enough site to be able to put the number of units in that you'd be able to do that. So worked with staff, came up with an alternative. It remains TNR, but we're replacing the 216 apartment units with 95 single-family residential. And we did include the rear-loaded townhomes, you can kind of see right here. And those match the alley loads that were in phase 1. Because the projects are going to be combined now, we can take the Newkirk phase 1 amenities that you can see on the screen, and we can combine them with phase 2. So overall, the total amenity points that are required are 4. We're at 14.5, so we're happy about that. Total open space, 24%, again, 15% being the minimum requirement. And then just to kind of bring you up to date, the staff report gave us these 4 homework items. Those first 2 were really to give them some updated exhibits to kind of show how those rear loaded lots would work. And then we had some conversation about block length. So this is the block that has the topography, and a condition that was removed by planning and zoning spoke to a pedestrian connection. Now that collector street is already in. There's already a 4-foot retaining wall that's in, but to kind of speak more to that topography difference, you'll have 8 to 10 feet of difference between those pads down to the collector. So a pedestrian connection just really isn't feasible there. So that's why planning and zoning agreed with us to remove that one. And then this was the other question, and we had a block length that was 508 feet. As you guys know, in most of the zone, 750 is the standard. In the TNR zone, it's 500. We were over it by 8, so we went ahead and revised that, and that took away the need for that pedestrian connection on Wolfsburg. So we are in agreement. So that hopefully this helps Councilmember Strader for the kind of keeping things straight. So A3 already went away with the P and Z recommendation. A4 would be an additional deletion. The DA language, I'd suggested the second phase of this development language to try to clarify that the single-family units are not capped at 95 for everything. Staff had suggested Newkirk East, rather than referring to phase 2, and we're totally fine with that. So with that, happy to answer any questions and hopefully wrap this one up.
Thank you, Heath. Council, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Strader.
More just for my own curiosity, I was just wondering, I understand your points about the visibility in terms of the location for multifamily. Is there anything you're seeing in the market, just out of just purely intellectual curiosity, it doesn't have to do with this application necessarily, but do you feel like the market's becoming kind of oversaturated with multifamily? Are you feeling a little bit of friction because of the interest rate environment, seeing stress around financing, or do you feel like it's really, this is just purely a visibility thing and you're not seeing any change in the multifamily commercial real estate market here locally?
Yeah, I think, Councilmember Strader, I would say on this site in particular, so micro to macro, this site in particular, it's really the visibility. I don't know that the interest rate environment or the saturation would necessarily make a difference there. It's more the market. What I'm hearing anecdotally is that we're starting to burn through the multifamily supply, and folks are watching interest rates really closely to decide whether they're going to jump back in. That's not from this client or this applicant or any, that's kind of what I'm seeing generally in talking to folks in the market. But who knows? Right now, I think a lot of things are in the air, so we'll have to see.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Strader.
Yeah, this is just interesting. I mean, at least in terms of what we ourselves see, we do internal dashboards from our community development group, and certainly the permitting activity for multifamily has fallen significantly compared to even 1 or 2 years ago. So I sort of feel like maybe we're just on that side of the real estate cycle with multifamily and kind of chewing through some inventory while it comes online. But I was just curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I think interest rates will make a big difference too.
Sure.
That's what I would really watch.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Clark, thanks for being here. This non-contiguous parcel. I guess I'm still struggling. What's the status on it? Who's gonna own it? Who's gonna maintain it?
Yeah, thanks.
My assumption is if it goes to the irrigation district, then the lateral road would provide the access that they need. But if not, I guess that would then create some sort of a challenge in terms of being able to maintain that property.
Yeah, Councilmember Cavanagh, and I apologize, I meant to bring that up. So that the triangle parcel was not neglected in the first application. We talked about it. It was part of the conversation at the time. This application doesn't include it as a lot because it's within the what will ultimately be a final plat, because it's separated. We don't have ownership of the Nampa Meridian strip. It's not going to be conveyed to anybody. That parcel already exists. That's the purpose of a plat, is to create parcels for purposes of conveyance. So, due to some of the interpretations we've seen at Ada County, they don't like seeing those kind of breaks. And so we left it out for that reason, because it's just not necessary. We've chatted with staff about this and confirmed that it will be either owned by Nampa Meridian or by our homeowners association, more likely the homeowners association. And we've chatted with Nampa Meridian. They have no issue with allowing us access across for maintenance. It'll be taken care of. It'll be a CC&R obligation.
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Council, additional questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone signed up on this item?
Mr. Mayor, there were no advanced signups.
Okay, is there anybody present who would like to provide testimony on this item, either in the room or online? Seeing no one coming forward and no one raising their hand online, does the applicant waive final comments? Applicant waives final comments. Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Strader.
Happy to get the ball rolling here. I I move that we close the public hearing on H 2024-0043.
Second.
Have a motion, a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
A couple things I like about this project, and I just wanted to express, first of all, my appreciation to city staff for the in-depth analysis of density and comparable projects within the 10-mile specific area. I thought that was extremely helpful. And that helped, I think, give us the right foundation, I think, so we didn't get sidetracked. So I really appreciate that. This is a challenging site in terms of the topography, so I think that was a justification for the block face length on Midford. And then in addition to that, it feels like a nice product in terms of actually having attached townhomes. I think in this location feels like the right kind of middle ground, and it provides something that I think a lot of people need in terms of starting out. So I think that makes sense. So with that, I'm happy to make a motion. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H 2024-0043 as presented in the staff report for today's hearing date with the following modifications. Noting specifically that the new Kirk East development will have a maximum of 95 single-family units. So clarifying that that applies to phase 2. In addition to that, noting that the North Midford Way may exceed the maximum block length. And then finally, also noting that the property owner or owners association will maintain the northeast corner north of the Kennedy lateral, and that they will own and maintain that, that they will maintain that property. And then with that, also reflecting, I think, the conditions that have been removed. So condition 3, the block length, which I already touched on, but then also condition 4, the pedestrian facility has also been removed. I think I got it all. But
Motion, second.
I think we had a better second down that way, I thought.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Real quick, want to commend the applicant on this. Council, I'm on Franklin by this development at least 3 times a week. And one, in terms of recognizing the nature of multifamily in this area, we also have a lot of multifamily in this area. I think addition of some ownership opportunity is a more prudent decision. So I want to commend the applicant for their creativity around that.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
I remember when this came through the first time, and it was a kudos at that time that they took not just the topography of this lot, but the odd shape of this lot and what they were able to do with it the first time. And you know me, I like this move. I like the single family houses. I like the fewer units. I think it's a far better fit. And I think once again, you've done a fantastic job with a tough piece of ground to fit all this on. Absolutely.
Excellent. Any additional comments? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh. Little Roberts. Taylor.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried, and the item is agreed to. Thank you very much. With that, council, on to item 7, which is first reading of ordinance number 25-2075. Ask the clerk to read this ordinance by title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an ordinance repealing and replacing Title II Meridian City Code regarding commissions and committees, amending Meridian Code Section 165 regarding Compensation Committee, amending Meridian City Code Section 179 regarding Compensation Committee, repealing Meridian City Code Section 1711 regarding Meridian Districting Committee and City Council Districts, repealing Meridian City Code Section 10711 regarding Impact Fee Advisory Committee, repealing conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. We've heard this for first reading. We'll bring this back for second and third reading next week. I guess do I need to ask if anyone wants to read in its entirety since we're not passing it this evening, Mr. Neri? Is there anybody that would like it read in its entirety? Okay, seeing that, we'll bring it back for second and third reading next week. With that, we'll move on to item 8. And ask the clerk to read this ordinance by title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an ordinance related to Baratza subdivision H 2024-0016, annexing a parcel of land located in the north half of the northwest quarter of Section 34, Township 4 North, Range 1 West, Boise Meridian, City of Meridian, Ada County, Idaho, more particularly described in Exhibit A, rezoning 80.30 acres of such real property from RUT to R8 zoning district and R15 zoning districts, directing city staff to alter all applicable use and area maps, as well as the official zoning maps and all official maps depicting the boundaries and the zoning districts of the city of Meridian in accordance with this ordinance, providing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Assessor, the Ada County Treasurer, the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission as required by law, repealing conflicting ordinances and providing an effective date.
Thank you, council. You've heard this ordinance read by title. Is there anybody that'd like it read in its entirety? If not, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
move that we approve ordinance 25-2076.
Have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 25-2076. Is there any discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh. Little Roberts.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
Strater.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Anything else agreed to? Council, anything under future meeting topics or a motion to adjourn?
Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.